I finally, for the love of God, have gotten through the next 20 pages of this 175-page Idaho 4 Moscow Murders unredacted hearing. And that happened on January 23rd and 24th. That we weren't privy to the 23rd. Like the majority of the day was closed hearing, and so they unredacted it and posted it, but it's 175 pages long. I read the first 20 pages to you. If you haven't seen it, please go look for that. But if you haven't read it, I'm going to read it to you now, my notes wise, not just reading to you directly. I might have to do multiple parts, we'll see. But Anne starts asking, so Anne is interviewing, or Payne is on the stand, and so she is examining him right now. First affidavit is what she brings up. She had originally talked about as Exhibit A. Exhibit A was the probable cause affidavit, and he said it was a living document, meaning many people were working on it, and I find that that's going to be troublesome later on. I've never heard of that. Usually one person's in charge, but they're saying that a bunch of people were adding to it from the FBI, ISP, and Moscow PD. And the first affidavit she starts to bring up which was asking for the AT&T records for the first 48 hours of Brian's phone. She then starts to refer to Dylan Mortensen, and then the judge lectures her, says that they are sealed and she can use Dylan's real name. And she was saying, I'm just trying to get into habit of not using her name for that purpose so that she doesn't accidentally slip up in a open hearing. It's confirmed that Payne interviewed Dylan 4 times by December 23rd when he wrote that report. Now, I find this interesting. Anne quotes this, but the way she says it, I feel is new because I hadn't heard this way. But she said that that Dylan had heard Kaylee go upstairs, yell, "Someone's here," and run back downstairs. And he says yes and confirms that. Did you guys know that Kaylee ran upstairs and back downstairs yelling, "Someone's here"? Because I didn't. Immediately, the state objects. Jennings objects. Judge sustains based on the statements of Dylan Mortensen are not a subject of a motion to suppress, separate from the Franks issue of IGG. So they're saying that that would be separate from what they're talking about today, which was to ask for a Franks hearing with regards to suppressing the investigative genetic genealogy, or the DNA, or how they got to Brian. Now she goes back to the traffic stop mentioned in the PCA, the probable cause affidavit. I will say PCA going forward. First mention of Brian, which was August, not on his radar. This stop prior to learning Brian's name, December 19th. So when he had that traffic stop with a corporal separate, we don't know about that. Not the one with the body cam footage that we know about. It was one prior to that. Brian was not on their radar before learning his name on December 19th. It's kind of interesting that he's not on their radar at all prior to them learning this tip from the FBI. Then there's that traffic stop where we see the body cam footage with the female officer and at WSU. And again, he is not on their radar prior to December 19th, even with that traffic stop as well. She addresses to him that he put information about Pennsylvania license plates not needing front ones. And then Anne points out that the 1112 video did not show enough of the vehicle that you could see if it had a front license plate, and he confirmed yes. She then moves on to vehicle identification and Agent Immel, who's with the FBI, who ID'd the car. And she asked if there was more than one vehicle ID'd, and he said no, just the Hyundai Elantra. Asked if Immel was comfortable with the 2011 to 2000, most comfortable with the 2011-2013 years that he originally gave. Remember, he gave 2011-2013 years for the vehicle, not the year that Brian, or the range that Brian's is. The state immediately objects when she starts to go into this. So it seems like when she starts to pick up on things that may be questionable, the state immediately jumps on her and starts to object. So Jennings objects. Anne says it will be clear in about 2 questions why this is relevant. And then the judge said that he didn't want to flood the transcript, so he said, approach my bench. Now, this whole sidebar at the bench is actually typed out, and it was just too long. I'm not going to read that to you. But Jennings saying car ID is separate Franks. We are here about IgG Franks. Anne says she's going to get to the affidavit after the IgG was the police in Pullman running the car, and Payne had laid it out in the affidavit after the IgG. Without stating it, so she was doing the IgG part with him now. The car is a different year than the bolo that they put out. He confirmed with her that they were going to argue other issues in the day, like later that same day in the public hearing, and like the idea of the Franks violation by not informing the magistrate of the use of the IgG and violations. And then he puts as you allege them and obtaining IgG. So I already felt like at that point when he says as you allege them, he's already prejudging this case, meaning Hippler, the new judge. Hippler goes on to say he understands the argument is the IgG led law enforcement to expand the search of the cars. And then a bench concluded, and he ended up sustaining the objection, so she has to move on. Payne then goes on to confirm he chose not to put the IgG in the PCA. And he explains that it was a collective decision. They wanted to independently verify the information provided as a, quote, tip from the FBI. But we now know that there was a recent document that was posted by the state stating that they will not reveal the source of the tip at trial. So I have about 2 more pages for Payne, and then she starts to cross-examine someone else, so I'll do that on my next video. So the cross-examination of Payne for the IgG, this is when the state gets up and starts questioning him. She refers back to December 19th and 20th. Information received clarified it was a team, and she asked who was the team. He mentions Bill Thompson, Darren Gilbertson, which is the Idaho State Police, Ed Jacobson, the FBI, and a couple of, he said there was a couple others from ISP and FBI. He couldn't remember. But all of a sudden he remembers these details of these people that were there, but before in previous testimony he couldn't remember anything. He kept saying, I don't know. She said it was fair to assume that it's the team leaders, and he said yes. And they go on to talk about that there was 2 briefings every day, in the morning and the evening, from November 13th to December 19th/20th, when they hear Brian's name. She's insinuating that the Exhibit A, the PCA, was not just Payne's exhibit, because they all would gather 2 times a day and hear the same information. She asked Payne, did you receive any medical information about Brian? And he says no. Now we're on redirect by the defense. Who from FBI was at those meetings? And he said again that Special Agent Jacobson, Maria Tyndall, Robert Hill, and others he can't remember. She asks, is there anyone from Moscow PD? He states that Captain Blaker, Detective Vargas, Chief Fry, Captain Dollinger, and then he mentions an Anthony Dollinger. I don't know if they're the same person. All command team of Moscow PD, and anyone from investigation who was available that wasn't like interviewing people or out doing investigation. Then he said she asked about ISP, which is the Idaho State Police. He mentions Darren Gilbertson, Detective Joe Lake, and Mike Mooney, who's a lieutenant. When was the first time they spoke of Brian in those meetings? They said December 19th, and 2 meetings per day every day up until December 19th. So those are my notes on the next 20 pages. Now on the next 20 pages, they do start interviewing another person, and I will move on to that in my next video because it's way too much for this one and I'm almost at the end. So if you like this, make sure you like and subscribe. I'm going to be going through the 175 pages of the unredacted part of the hearing from January 23rd. I'm reading through it, but I'm summarizing it because it's a lot of information. So if you like this, make sure you follow here, like, comment, and make sure you follow my YouTube channel. Same name as here. Thanks so much. Bye.